Good morning. It is, well, technically it's afternoon now. October. Way ahead of myself. August 29th. We're going to do the New York Times propaganda piece. Today's yellow journalist is David Leonhardt. Leonhardt. All right. Covering a Times investigation into water levels, Trump's trial date in the federal election interference case, and the health benefits of smoothies. Dry wells. The water that lies beneath the Earth's surface, known as groundwater. Really? You needed to clarify that one? Okay. Has been a vital resource for thousands of years. Or all of it. Communities that are far away from lakes and rivers use groundwater to irrigate crops and provide drinking water. For most of human history, groundwater has existed in a convenient equilibrium. The pockets of water under the surface need years or decades to replenish as rainwater and other moisture seep into the earth. Fortunately, though, people have used groundwater slowly, allowing replenishment to happen. Now that equilibrium is at risk, several of my colleagues, led by Mira Rojanasokul and Christopher Flavelle, have spent months compiling data on groundwater levels across the U.S. based on more than 80,000 monitoring stations. Chris and Mira did so after discovering that no comprehensive database existed. The statistics tended to be local and fragmented, making it difficult to understand national patterns. The trends in this new database are alarming. Yeah, whatever. Over the past 40 years, groundwater levels at most the sites have declined. At 11% of the sites, levels last year fell to the lowest level on record. You mean in 40 years, that's the record. So not much at all. The U.S., in other words, is taking water out of the ground more quickly than nature is replenishing it. There's almost no way to convey how important it is. Don Klein, the Associate Director of Water Resources at the United States Geological Survey, told the Times, already there are consequences. In parts of Kansas, short of water have reduced the amount of corn that an average acre can produce. I live in Kansas, and no, you're lying. Okay, let's just get something straight. There's 3 times the amount of water underground stored in porous rocks than there is on the surface. Okay? We're fine on the groundwater. Flat out lying. Now, there are issues with irrigation and things like that. And again, I live in Kansas. I know how the farmers work. The biggest problem has to do with Nebraska and the way they waste water for corn. And we didn't grow corn in Kansas for a long time. In Norfolk, Virginia, officials have resorted to pumping treated wastewater into underground rock layers that store groundwater, known as aquifers, to replenish them. On Long Island, the depletion of aquifers has allowed salt water to seep in and threatened the groundwater that remains. No, it filters through the rocks and becomes fresh water. We've built whole parts of the country and whole parts of the economy on groundwater, which is fine so long as you have groundwater, Chris told me. I don't think people realize quite how quickly we're burning through it. Giant wells. Unlike many other environmental trends, this story is not primarily about climate change. I'm sure you're going to work that in there. Although the warming planet plays an aggravating role, no, it doesn't. There are 3 main reasons for the groundwater declines. Pumping technology has improved, allowing communities to draw water out of the earth much more quickly than in the past. Some wells can pump more than 100,000 gallons a day. Economic growth and urban sprawl have increased the demand for water. Although the U.S. economy has not been growing rapidly in recent decades, American farms helped feed other countries where the economy and population have been growing faster. Didn't mention the giant concrete jungles. Climate change, no, that's a lie, has reduced the amount of water that comes from alternative sources like rivers. That's just a flat out lie. There's no data that would ever support such a BS claim. A warmer planet leads to less rainfall. No, it doesn't. It leads to more. That's you. Oh, wow. Now you're just flat out lying. And faster evaporation of the rain that does fall, which immediately goes into clouds and rains back down. It's a cycle that doesn't stop. These declines have led communities to increase groundwater use. You can pull water out of the air. These forces are not unique to the U.S. Other countries are coping with groundwater decline that are sometimes worse. This summer, my colleagues Vivian Lee and Layli Nico Anazar reported on the dire shortages in parts of Iran, while Alyssa Rubin and Brian Denton did so in Iraq. The photographs and videos from Iraq are especially jarring. It's a desert. Protecting the commons. Is there any solution? More government power and taxation is my guess. Slowing climate change by reducing carbon emissions, which are good for the planet, would help in the long term. Nope. We need more carbon. Carbon is extremely important. And the long term is obviously important. More immediately, the answer may need to involve stricter rules on how much water towns, farms, and companies can remove from the ground. More government power. Gee, I'm shocked. In many places, Chris said, the rules are weak or non-existent. The federal government neither tracks the situation nor does much to regulate it. Some state and local governments in parts of Arizona, for instance, and Texas, also have lax rules. So more government power, always the solution. It's a classic tragedy of the commons. The ecologist Garrett Hardin popularized that term in the 1968 essay based on a 19th century pamphlet by William Forster Lloyd, an English economist. In the pamphlet, Lloyd explained that any individual farmer had an incentive for his cattle to eat as much as grass as possible in any field that the community shared. But if all the farmers did so, the field would be ruined. The solution is for the farmers to agree on a set rules that benefit all of them in the long run. You can read the Times groundwater investigation here. That's just propaganda. Children have the right to sue their countries over climate change. No, they don't. That is just absurd. Children don't have the right to do anything. They're not competent yet. Trump indictments. Donald Trump's federal trial on the 2020 election interference is set to begin on March 4th, the day before Super Tuesday, indicating that this is indeed an entirely politically motivated prosecution. If the trial goes as scheduled, most Republican delegates will be awarded after it starts, but before the verdict, the outcome could transform the race, which is the intended result. This is blatant election interference. I think it's funny you're calling it 2020 election interference when it was perfectly legal what he did. China's real estate crisis is leaving workers and small businesses unpaid. That's just common in China. Chinese officials continue to insist that economic failure is impossible, which means that they are currently collapsing. International Spanish prosecutors opened an inquiry into Louis. Who cares? The soccer official kissed a player that agreed to do it. It's Spain's Me Too. Nobody cares. Spaniards do that. She just needs to get over herself. Nobody cares. A cyber scam industry in Cambodia holds... Why is that beeping? Like I'm not going crazy. There's a beeping. A cybersecurity scam industry in Cambodia holds workers captive and forces them to hawk fraudulent investments online. That's called slavery. More sanctions on Russia could affect the global diamond market. What? Who cares? Climate. Florida counties ordered mandatory evacuations as Hurricane Idalia approaches. See its likely path. That's climate change, right? No, that's weather. How to prepare for hurricane season. Make plans, store digital copies of documents, and prepare an emergency kit. Don't live near hurricanes. That would be one way. Flash floods destroyed homes in West Virginia. Dozens of residents needed rescue. Americans misunderstand what individual actions can cut the most emissions, like flying less and reducing meat consumption, a poll from the Washington Post found. Yeah, screw you and all of your... I'm not eating the bugs. I'll eat as much meat as I want. I'll have my air conditioner on whatever I want to. 70% of all pollution comes from just 100 companies. Al Gore has 10 giant mansions, flies around on private jets. Leonardo DiCaprio has a fleet of yachts, private aircraft. I'm not listening to a bunch of people who live the life of luxury and tell me I need to eat bugs. Pound sand. Politics. Samuel Joseph Wurzbacher, who became known during the 2008 presidential race as Joe the Plumber, the metaphorical middle-class everyman, died at 49. Oof, that sucks. Wonder what killed him. Tennessee Republicans voted again to silence Justin Jones, one of the Democratic state representatives whom they expelled in the spring. He is an absolute disgrace. He flat out lies. He says guns are responsible for things. He screams racism about everything. He's a complete jerk. He's an absolute embarrassment to the state. Completely ignorant. I mean, he is the poster child for incompetent leftists who think they know things that it doesn't know a damn thing. That guy is such a joke. The Defense Department plans to buy thousands of drones in response to China's military buildup. An assailant shot to death a faculty member at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. The campus went into lockdown for hours. Yeah, and you claimed that it was an active shooter event and it was a big mass shooting, when in fact it was actually just disgruntled workers. 2 adults, a toddler, and a baby were found dead in the Upper West Side apartment. Okay. Other big stories. The president of the National Association of Realtors resigned after sexual harassment complaints. The Transportation Department fined American Airlines $4.1 million for repeatedly stranding passengers on tarmacs. Oh, wow. What a big fine. Sure, that hurt their bottom line. Corona hospitalizations in the U.S. have risen in recent weeks but remain low. They're nothing. It's a cold. Nobody cares. A neurosurgeon found a live parasitic worm in an Australian woman's brain. I swear to God, what? It's the printer. That's what it is. Go die in a fire. I swear to God, that thing. Here's $1 million idea for anybody that wants to make it. All you got to do, you just make a printer. It just works. When you press print, it just prints. That's it. No drivers, no updates, no firmware, no constant beeping, no asking you to do this, that, or that. You hit print and it prints. And if there's not enough ink, it just keeps printing anyway. And then you find out that there's not enough ink because your picture doesn't look right. Just you can have that one. Pundits believe Donald Trump would be a weak Republican nominee. Who? The people on the left? Republican voters think he's their best bet. Yeah, they do, by a huge margin. Here's a column by Goldberg on Vivek, who will be Trump's VP. Why Cuban migrants are moving to Kentucky? Well, they're moving anywhere, not Cuba, because they want to get out of the communist hell. It would be. Coping strategies and advice for dealing with adolescent emotions. I'm curious about this. They're not going to talk to you. Teenagers don't listen to their parents. They listen to their kids, to their friends' parents. That's why it's important you have strong friends. The five-time world chess champion Magnus Carlsen settled a defamation lawsuit stemming from his actions that another player had cheated. Huh. I'll have to check that out. Millennial moms say they're sick of trying to be Instagram perfect parents. Well, get off of it. Hey, normal food. Linguine with lemon sauce. It doesn't sound great, but at least it's normal food and not like a bunch of... it's pasta. Okay, let's do Today in History. All right, so on August 29th, 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast near Burris, Louisiana, bringing floods that devastated New Orleans. More than 1,800 people in the region died, and one of the worst disaster responses ever. But comparatively, Bush did a lot better job than Biden, didn't he? On this date, in 1632, English philosopher John Locke was born in Somerset. And what an impact on the world he would have. In 1814, during the War of 1812, Alexandria, Virginia, formally surrendered to British military forces, which occupied the city until September 3rd. In 1862, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing began operations at the United States Treasury. In 1944, 15,000 American troops of the 28th Infantry Division marched down the Champs-Élysées in Paris as the French capital continued to celebrate its liberation from the Nazis. Did I say is Champs-Élysées? I know how to say that. I hate when they put those pronunciations because it messes with me. All right. In 1957, the Senate gave final congressional approval to a Civil Rights Act after South Carolina Senator Strom Thurmond, then a Democrat, ended a filibuster that had lasted 24 hours. In 1958, pop superstar Michael Jackson was born in Gary, Indiana. In 1966, the Beatles concluded their fourth American tour with their last public concert held at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. In 2008, Republican presidential nominee John McCain picked Sarah Palin, a maverick conservative who had been governor of Alaska for less than 2 years, to be his running mate. He was the maverick, not her. In 2009, funeral services were held in Boston for Senator Edward Kennedy, who was eulogized by President Barack Obama. Hours later, Kennedy's remains were buried at Arlington National Cemetery outside Washington. 2013, in a sweeping new policy statement, the Justice Department said it would not stand in the way of states that wanted to legalize, tax, and regulate marijuana as long as there were effective controls to keep marijuana away from kids, the black market, and federal property. In 2018, Senator John McCain was remembered as a true American hero at a crowded service in North Phoenix Baptist Church after a motorcade carried McCain's body from the state capitol. Kanye West apologized on a Chicago radio station for calling slavery a choice. Really? I don't remember that particular gaffe from Kanye, but oh well. In 2019, President Donald Trump said the United States planned to withdraw more than 5,000 troops from Afghanistan and would then determine future drawdowns. And then Joe Biden went and botched that and killed 13 people after going a year and a half without any casualties. All right. Well, that is it. I was going to read Mondays of Meaning, but this has droned on long enough. We're good.